Welcome to Personal Growth. I'm going to be talking our way through the course in a series of videos. Some of these are going to match up relatively closely to what we're talking about in the book, and other times there are things that we're going to talk about that aren't really going to fit, that are going to be a little bit different. And so today is one of those places. So one of the things I want you to be thinking about, one way of sort of thinking about this course is this idea of vision without action is a daydream. So I want you to be putting our ideas into practice, act on them over the course of the semester. But also, action without vision is a nightmare. So think about, have some idea guiding what you're going to do. And so throughout the semester, you're going to see a lot of theory, a lot of ideas sort of providing the why for what we're doing. Now, your first chapter talks a lot about happiness and some of the ideas behind happiness. So most people, as you can see in this article by David Myers, most people report being pretty happy. And this is across cultures. It's not just in the US, but most people say, yeah, I'm pretty happy. Now, we'll talk about some of the complications of self-report data over the course of the semester. One of which is people aren't necessarily honest in their self-reports. And we'll also think about what we can do to increase that honesty. One of the big ideas, we often feel like if we only had a little bit more money, we'd feel better, we'd be happier. And the research consistently says, not so much. These are data from Kahneman and Deaton. Kahneman is a Nobel Prize winner in economics. And pretty consistently, the research says for people, for some levels or for some kinds of people, it does help. So particularly, it seems to reduce the amount of stress that people are under. And so they report feeling more happy. Above about 75,000, that doesn't hold true. $75,000. That more money doesn't mean more happiness. What does seem to make people happy? It's not so much material things, except again, at relatively low salaries, being able to pay for your heat, for food, for rent, that does decrease stress and is related to more happiness. On the other hand, experiences, going to concerts, vacations, time with friends, walking in the woods, those things, these experiences seem to be related to more happiness. Now, I'm also, throughout the course, I'm going to be talking about about college students. And so one of the things I'm interested in is what is going to help you do as well in college as you can. You might be thinking about some of the research from Dweck, Schreiner, and Shriram and Vetter, who say, those of you who perceive opportunities for growth from college, who see it as somehow useful and important, to where you are, who perceive yourselves as able to grow and able to be more successful. what we'll talk about is growth mindset, tend to do better, who perceive themselves as having the kind of support that they need from family, professors, advisors, peers, and just basic information, seem to do better, who have effective strategies to cope with problems, and who are meaningfully engaged with their classes and college, seem to do better. So I want you to be thinking about those and putting those into action. Now, one of the difficulties with psychological research is that while we try and do as much experimental research as possible, it's not always possible. You know, we can't really assign people to different groups, you know, in terms of salaries earned per year. And so what we're looking at often are correlations. A positive correlation is when both variables go up at the same time, happiness and salary, for example, or high school GPA and college GPA. A negative correlation is when one variable goes up and the other goes down. For example, exam scores and absences. The problem is that there can be other kinds of variables involved. So for example, while we know that relationship satisfaction is related to sexual satisfaction, is it that these things cause each other, or is there, you know, something in terms of compatibility in values that perhaps there is this third variable, which is in this figure identified as Z? Maybe that's what causes this difference. Or perhaps this relationship between social activity and happiness is related to extroversion. You know, that people who are extroverted are more socially active and more happy, and that it's extroversion that makes a difference rather than this relationship here. Throughout the semester then, we're going to be thinking about or using and thinking about this critical thinking model. It's a useful way from my perspective to be able to see what kinds of things you can do to change your life. So part of what I want you to begin doing is observing yourselves and others carefully, recognizing your values. I want you to think critically about the claims about influences and think about, are there other ways of seeing these things? Just as we were talking about in terms of this correlation. You know, what are other ways of seeing them? What are other explanations? You know, do the claims people are making make sense? Think about the roles of context and culture. So, you know, to what degree this semester, as I'm recording this video, we are still experiencing the effects of COVID. How does that affect, you know, your experience of stress, for example? How does the amount of support that you have at home or elsewhere influence what's going on? And throughout the semester, we'll be talking about the role of individual and group differences and how those play a role in terms of your adjustment in situations. Finally, let's apply these things. So think about how you can practice ethical sensitivity and civility towards others. How can you use the ideas we're talking about to impact positively your relationships with others? How can they impact you? as positively as possible? And how can you engage in self-reflection in order to enhance your understanding of yourself and how these contextual variables impact your behavior? We're going to keep coming back to this model throughout the semester, and I hope you find it useful. Take care.